Making headlines first at 9, seeking clarification. The Supreme Court concludes deliberating the length of the president's term in office. Possible improvements. Sri Lanka vowed to intervene in improving parliamentary conduct.
We don't want to come to an argument. We want to discuss with them.
Heed the warnings. Independent election monitoring body warns against candidates with state sector involvement.
One serious incident, this specific candidate is doing 16 contract.
Action assured. President Maithripala Sirisena insists that all responsible for destroying state property will be held accountable and punished. Denial over denial. US President Donald Trump adamant that there was no collusion between his election campaign and the Russians. Good evening, bringing you news from around Sri Lanka and across the world. I'm Indiva Riyamuatta joining you on Derana 24/7 first at 9. We take a look at your top stories tonight. The Supreme Court today concluded the open court deliberation on whether President Maithripala Sirisena's term in office is 5 years or 6 years. It was done in line with a request made by the President on Tuesday. Issuing a communiqué this evening, the President's media unit clarified the grounds to the request, stating that the President decided to consult the Supreme Court on the length of his term in office owing to possible complications arising from the 19th Amendment to the Constitution.
The deliberations to determine whether President Maithripala Sirisena's term in office is 5 years or 6 was conducted at the Supreme Court today. The deliberation was carried out by a 5-member judge bench chaired by Chief Justice Priyasad Depp with Supreme Court judges Eva Vanasundara, Buwaneka Aluvihare, KT Chitrasiri and Sisira Diabru, comprising the rest of the bench. Submitting facts at the proceedings, the Attorney General said that since President Maithripala Sirisena won the presidential elections held on the 8th of January and took oath on the 9th, he is able to hold office for 6 years from that day. He added that although the 19th Amendment to the Constitution limits a president's term to 5 years, the president by then has taken oath for a 6-year term. However, Professor G.L. Piris, parliamentarian Vimal Weerawansa and legal counsel representing PAFRL stated that President Sirisena is unable to remain in office for 6 years as the 19th Amendment to the Constitution has limited the term of the president to 5 years and it is applicable to the incumbent president as well. In the meantime, an attorney representing the General Secretary of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party attended the proceedings and pointed out that since the 19th Amendment was passed after President Sirisena was sworn in and as such, he is able to remain in office for 6 years. Following the deliberations, the Supreme Court informed attorneys to provide written submissions, if any, before noon tomorrow and declared that their confidential determination will be given to the President afterwards.
President Maithripala Sirisena emphasizes that all those who are responsible for destroying state property and fraudulent activities will be held accountable and punished irrespective of their political parties. The President made the remark at an election meeting held in Madirigiriya today.
An election meeting organised by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party was held in Madirigiriya in Polonnaruwa today under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena.
Remember that all who represent the symbol of the hand or the betel leaf are my representatives. I will give them all the necessary resources. I will also make them the most disciplined. As the chairman of the SLFP, I will not forgive any wrongdoers in my party and will make sure to hold them accountable. I emphasize that my representatives will be uncorrupt and disciplined. All of you saw how politicians from both the government as well as the opposition engaged in a brawl during the parliamentary session yesterday. Everybody called each other a thief. The reality is that the public clearly knows who the thief is, but they still choose to ignore the fact. I will punish all those who are responsible for destroying state property and other fraudulent activities, irrespective of their political party, designation or social status.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe states that the country needs more foreign exchange in order to generate better revenue. The Premier made the remark speaking to media following a visit to the free trade zone in Katunayake.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe made an observational tour of the free trade zone in Katunayaka to observe the progress of the new investments in the free trade zone.
What we need now is to get foreign exchange and to create job opportunities. With increased foreign exchange and increased competitiveness, we can gain better revenue. We spent the past 2 years stabilizing our economy by giving facilities and minimizing the debt burden, as well as providing necessary infrastructure. A group of investors will arrive in the country tomorrow. The Prime Minister of Singapore will visit the country together with investors, and another group of 100 investors from Japan will also arrive. We just started this journey. A group of Chinese investors will arrive in the country as well. Firstly, we prepared the background and now we are moving ahead. If we don't get foreign exchange, we will always be in debt. We will have to borrow from overseas, so that cannot be done. Throughout these few years, our concern have been to progress faster.
Attorney at Law U.R. De Silva was unanimously re-elected as the President of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka for yet another year. Speaking exclusively to First at 9, he said that in the coming year, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka is going to work for the betterment of the legal community and the litigants. Meanwhile, he also touched on the conduct of parliamentarians and the role of the Bar Association in addressing any possible questionable conduct.
My personal view is during next year, we are going to work hard for the betterment of the lawyers as well as to the litigants. So I think it is the duty of the Bar Association. And first important thing would be that with regard to the Constitution, it is our duty as the Bar Association of Sri Lanka to give our views with regard to that, and we are going to have special committees for that.
He also expressed views on the tense situation that erupted in Parliament yesterday.
As far as the issues are concerned, I think the Bar Association should take immediate action with regard to the Parliament proceedings also. We have observed that both the government as well as the opposition have not performed their duties perfectly. So all the people were watching that, and I think we should intervene and discuss with them. We don't want to come to an argument. We want to discuss with them and show that the parliamentary proceedings should be done in a proper way.
In the meantime, views were expressed on yesterday's tense situation in Parliament, where some parliamentarians were involved in a brawl.
The politician has become a symbol for robbers and thieves. There hasn't been such a speaker in Sri Lanka's history, and we are embarrassed about Karu Jayasuriya. When parliamentarians were brawling, the speaker was looking at the Prime Minister. They came to fight for Ranil Wickremesinghe, and half of the footnote cadre was right at the front. The entire parliamentary tradition went to waste. We were in Anuradhapura yesterday. They used foul language and brawled in Parliament. The Parliament at present has become so ill-disciplined to the point I've never seen before. Actually, both factions are thieves. They say the SLFP wasn't a part of it. They're aiding Ranil Wickremesinghe in covering up the biggest daylight robbery, the bond scam. This is a fight between two factions of thieves, with one faction robbing the central bank from 2008 to 2015 and the other from 2015 to present day. Watch what happened in Parliament on television. Do not let this disaster befall the country. We saw threats against people who gave evidence and attempts to cover up evidence during the Commission's proceedings. The Attorney General advised that a period of a week is required from the stance that security measures should be taken over evidence before making it a public document. I clearly state that as a party, we do not have issues with the report and also with the knowledge of the Commission members. Was the COPE able to inspect the telephone recordings or uncover the rented house? There is no need for a statement when a report is being tabled. The tabling should be followed by a debate. When facts of a COPE is sent to the Attorney General, they should be made into evidence. The central bank governor could at least have been removed temporarily if they had such a desire to do so. The second COPE gave the report in September and it's been over a year. Cases could have been filed in that time. We don't even know whether evidence was recorded. The public yesterday witnessed the behaviour and comments of certain parliamentarians. If the report wasn't received, the Speaker should have adjourned Parliament and convened a party leaders meeting. What's being attempted is to recoup the sum through a civil case and end the matter there. It is evident that there has been an admission of theft with the request to cover up 11.4 out of the 12 billion. The son-in-law was allowed to steal public property and he has aided it, which means he assisted a crime. Criminal charges won't go away just because the sum is recovered.
අපරාධ චෝදනාව ඉවත් වෙන්නේ නැහැ මුදල ආය කරගත්තයි කියලා.
Election monitoring body PAFREL is to deploy over 7,000 personnel for election monitoring activities ahead of the local government election on the 10th of February. Convening its first media briefing on the preparations for the election today, Executive Director of PAFREL, Rohana Hettiarachchi, warned candidates to refrain from violating election laws while highlighting cases of intimidation and threats against women candidates.
243 complaints related to election law flouting have been observed by PAFREL since the first day of nominations, and out of which 182 are confirmed. 37 cases are related to violent behaviour. PAFREL says that Western Province reports the highest number of cases, with 74 incidents being observed.
Targeting the elections day, we are planning to deploy around 4,000 observers to cover the outside the polling places. We are planning to deploy 341 mobile team throughout the country, considering 341 local government authorities. We have reported number of occasions that these candidates are they themselves doing contract. We have reported Ambilipitia, one serious incident. This specific candidate is doing 16 contract. If you are doing any contract, any engagement with the government authority, you are not allowed to contest the elections. Planning to take a legal actions even after the elections. And also we have observed as March 12 movement, there are about more than 50 cases already we have reported. We hand over to the IGP and the chairman of the elections commissions. Various kind of criminals are contesting in these elections. So far we have reported around 12 cases against women. And also we have reported 6 cases, then they were affected.
Candidates of the upcoming local government election as well as political party representatives continue to voice their views on the prospects.
The Colombo Municipal Council hasn't been defeated across 50 years. Some powerful ministers of President Mahinda Rajapaksa's government insulted us by saying the area is only fit for cattle. That shows the support the UNP has from the people within the area of the Colombo Municipal Council. And therefore, we won't lose.
We couldn't win this even after teaming up with other parties except the UNP. But today we say with conviction that the flower bud will win the Colombo Municipal Council. The majority of this country elected wrong politicians. Promises given before being elected president are not followed through. Look at the latest president. Promises were made to abolish the executive presidency within 100 days. The president who made that pledge sent a letter requesting another year's extension to his tenure. Is it a wonder to be fed up with politics?
And the 77th session of the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child is to commence in Geneva on the 15th of January, where children's rights in 8 countries, including Sri Lanka, is to be reviewed. The Committee on the Rights of the Child is a body of 18 independent experts that monitor implementation of the Convention on the Rights of the Child by its state parties. It also monitors implementation of 2 optional protocols to the Convention on involvement of children in armed conflict and the trade of children, child prostitution and child pornography. All states parties are obliged to submit regular reports to the committee on how the rights are being implemented. During the meetings in Geneva, committee members will also hold question and answer sessions with the respective government delegations. A 16-member delegation headed by the Secretary to the Ministry of Women and Child Affairs, Chandani Senaratne, will be participating in the upcoming session, where UN officials are to focus on Sri Lanka during the 15th and 16th of January. And Prince Edward, Earl of Wessex and the Countess of Wessex will pay a visit to Sri Lanka from the 31st of January to the 4th of February. The British High Commission stated that the Prince Edward will represent Queen Elizabeth II at the 70th anniversary celebration of Sri Lanka's independence.
Earl of Wessex Prince Edward is the youngest child of Queen Elizabeth II and the Duke of Edinburgh. The Earl and Countess support Queen Elizabeth in her official duties and undertake many public engagements each year. Issuing a communique, the British High Commission in Sri Lanka stated that the Earl and the Countess will travel to Colombo and other parts of Sri Lanka, celebrating the long-standing friendship between the two countries and share interest in the Commonwealth. While engaging in Sri Lanka's 70th anniversary celebration of independence, the duo will also engage in several projects.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
And the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka relating to the recommendations of the Commission of Inquiry to investigate, inquire and report on the issuance of the Treasury bond issuances said that Central Bank has already implemented some of the recommendations, while measures have already been initiated to implement most of the other recommendations. Under legislative amendments, a new Liability Management Act is expected to come into force this year. Introduction of new auction system for primary issuances of the government securities and improved secondary market across Sri Lanka development bonds are also mentioned in the report. Minister of Finance and Mass Media Mangala Samaraweera says one of the main proposals made in the budget to encourage entrepreneurship will be launched in March. New entrepreneurs who obtain credit facilities to start up ventures will be granted interest subsidy up to 75% of the applicable interest. During discussions with heads and chief executive officers of state and private banks at the Treasury yesterday, Finance Minister Mangala Samaraweera called all banks to extend their full support to implement the program. The government expects to disburse 60 billion rupees through state and private banks to prospective entrepreneurs, and a further 5 billion rupees has been set aside by the Treasury to reimburse the interest subsidy to banks. Under this scheme, 15 different loan schemes have been proposed for young entrepreneurs. With the aim of increasing female participation in business and industry, women who join the Enterprise Sri Lanka program will be given an interest relief of 10% of total interest value, in addition to 75% interest relief when obtaining loans. The government will also provide non-financial technical facilities for companies which women have a greater entitlement, including at least 10 participants that start up with a minimum capital of 10,000 rupees from each shareholder. And at the equity market, Sri Lankan shares ended marginally weaker today as recent gainers witnessed profit bookings while foreign buying in risky assets curbed losses. The all-share price index closed 6,000 or rather 6.73 lower at 6,496.23, while the S&P SL20 index gained 2.39 to end trading at 3,793.96. John Keel's Holdings and Central Finance were the highest contributors to turnover, while foreign participation accounted for about 45% of total market activity. We have Imeshu Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange for more details.
The turnover was 531.87 million rupees with 13.3 million shares changed in hands in 2,379 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 2,970.45 billion rupees. Top 5 gainers of the day were S&B Leasing, non-voting, Blue Diamonds, non-voting, Adam Capital, Bearable Resorts and Blue Diamonds. Today's foreign purchases were 250.07 million rupees and foreign sales were 226.14 million rupees.
And in news overseas, US President Donald Trump told reporters at the White House yesterday that there was no collusion between the Trump campaign and Russians. He was asked by a journalist during the joint news conference with Norwegian Prime Minister Erna Solberg about reports that he could be interviewed within weeks as part of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 US presidential election.
But again, I'll speak to attorneys. I can only say this, there was absolutely no collusion. Everybody knows it, every committee. I've been in office now for 11 months. For 11 months, they've had this phony cloud over this administration, over our government, and it has hurt our government. It does hurt our government.
Trump also gave reporters somewhat of an explanation as to why he thinks it's much better working with Russia.
I think it is much better to work with Russia. It's very much better having to do with North Korea, where we currently have a problem that should have never been my problem. But I will say this, I am for massive oil and gas and everything else and a lot of energy. Putin can't love that. I am for the strongest military that the United States ever had. Putin can't love that. But Hillary was not for a strong military, and Hillary, my opponent, was for windmills. And she was for other types of energy that don't have the same capacities at this moment, certainly.
The US president, meanwhile, also insisted that any immigration reform deal in Congress must include funding to construct a wall along the southern border with Mexico.
But any solution has to include the wall, because without the wall, it all doesn't work. You can look at other instances, look at what happened in Israel. They put up the wall, they solved a very major problem. We need the wall. We have to have the wall for security purposes. Security is number one. And so the answer is have to have the wall. Thank you.
UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has challenged the US to show there is a better alternative to the deal with Iran that limits its nuclear program. Following talks in Brussels with his Iranian and European counterparts, he said the 2015 accord was a considerable accomplishment that was preventing Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. Johnson stressed that Iran was fully in compliance with it. US President Donald Trump wants to amend the deal or withdraw from it. In October, he refused to rectify for Congress that Iran was complying, accusing of not living up to the spirit of the agreement. And the death toll in the devastating California mudslides has risen to 17 after 2 more bodies were found. With that, we take a look at a few other stories from around the world.
Santa Barbara County Sheriff said another 13 people remained missing following the mudslides, which destroyed 100 single-family homes. The mudslides in Santa Barbara County, triggered by a downpour on Tuesday, destroyed 100 single-family homes, damaged hundreds of other buildings and injured 28 people. It was the latest blow to a region still rebuilding after the wildfires. The Malaysian government has announced yesterday that a US exploration firm will resume the search for the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 aircraft. The search will be within an area of 25,000 square kilometers within the priority search area in southern Indian Ocean based on a no-cure, no-fee basis within a 90-day time frame. The new search area is said to be just north of a previous area covering an area of 120,000 square kilometers which was searched by the governments of Malaysia, China and Australia, but they found nothing. An oil tank that collided with a freighter off China's east coast on Saturday was still on fire yesterday as firefighting and search efforts for the tanker's missing crew members continued for a fourth day. The Panama-registered oil tanker Sanchi drifted about 65 sea miles northeast of the collision site in the Yangtze River's estuary yesterday morning, with thick smoke blowing into the air as rescue vessels struggled to reach the tanker to extinguish the burning wreck. A video shows alligators trying to stay alive in a frozen North Carolina pond by sticking their snouts through the ice. The cold-blooded reptiles at Charlotte River Swamp Park could be seen breathing through the gaps in the ice made with their snouts in a pond frozen by a brutal cold spell. Experts say once the alligators are able to breathe through the ice, they fall into a state of hibernation known as brumation by lowering their body temperatures and metabolism.
You are watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
In sports, Sri Lanka's blind cricket team suffered a 6-wicket loss against India yesterday at the 5th Blind Cricket World Cup in Dubai. Batting first, Sri Lanka scored 358 for the loss of 8 wickets in 40 overs. Coming in to bat, the visually impaired team of India passed the victory target in just 31.2 overs with 6 more wickets remaining. And the Marylebone Cricket Club's World Cricket Committee yesterday urged the Board of Control for Cricket in India to back the bid to have cricket included in the Olympics. Its members, former cricket players Ricky Ponting, Mike Gatting, Kumar Sangakkara and John Stevenson, met in Sydney yesterday to discuss the game's return to the Olympics.
Cricket was last played at the Olympics in the 1900 Paris Games. In last year, the International Cricket Council said that a majority of its member countries backed the decision for 2020 cricket to be included in upcoming Olympic Games. The International Olympic Council have stated that they would be open to the sport's inclusion providing that all the top teams were present. The BCCI, however, the game's richest and most influential board, has been reluctant to back the bid. After the MCC committee meeting this week, former players urged the BCCI to reconsider their stance for the benefit of the sport.
You know, it's one of those things that has frustrated me. And the fact that, we want to see cricket in the Olympic is something that will help promote the game around the world. Lots of governments could also then contribute money into the playing coffers for those countries that play. It just seems a great way of just promoting the number 2 sport in the world. The BCCI, sadly, I don't think get on very well with the IOC in their own country. There might be other reasons we don't know, but we'd certainly like to urge the BCCI to have a look at it again and try and support.
It would be ideal if all the major countries take part. And however, looking at the 2024 Olympics, I don't think that's going to be a reality at the moment because the preparations are well underway. But 2028 seems a very, very likely target, and there are negotiations and discussions underway.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Good evening and welcome to Forecast First. Your temperatures for tomorrow are to vary between 19 and 30 degrees Celsius with lowest temperatures expected in Kandy. Looking at the map, a low pressure zone is set to prevail over the island. Showers can be expected in Jaffna, Mena, Vaunia and Anuradhapura as well as Trincomalee. Anuradhapura, Kandy, Colombo and Galle in particular will experience some thunder showers. That's all we have from the Weather Centre tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
You are watching Sri News Channel. Other Derana 24/7.
That's all from the Other Derana News Center on First at 9. And before we go, as usual, we'd like to leave you with the aerial visuals of Muratua, where the coast meets the railway line and the Gall Road, creating a picturesque view from up above. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.